Hello everybody and welcome to game number 1 of this best of 5 semi-final series for the Tiberium Wars 1 vs 1 Spring Showdown Tournament hosted by GameReplays.org. And with that said, we're brought to the map Tournament Dust Bowl. And spawning in the north as the cyan nod, we have Maze. And then down in the south as his opponent, spawning as the pink scrin, we have Shock Treatment. So Shock Treatment versus Maze, probably the two most prominent names in Tiberium Wars that I can think of that are active players as of late, and Maze obviously being a pretty significant contender in any tournament type style gameplay, as we've seen him playing very well in both Tiberium Wars and Kane's Wrath. Shock Treatment obviously no slouch, as I think he is arguably one of the best, if not the best, Tiberium Wars player in the game. But we'll have to see if he's able to live up to the hype. And with that said, we're brought into game number 1. So obviously this is not a live cast. I wish I could have been there for the actual live event, but I heard it was actually pretty fantastic. Obviously all of the games were cast by Aggressive Panda, so be sure to check him out if you have not already. His channel is linked on my channel as well. You just go to my channel and then click on the channels button, and you'll be able to find him there. So if you're interested in seeing these games cast live, you can check that out there. I'm not sure exactly which of the series he managed to catch, but all the same, Shock Treatment has expanded off to the left-hand side with the outpost. It has been spotted here by Maze, at least I believe it has, and actually Maze is going to be focusing down the remainder of these buzzers, maybe only just now realizing. I'm not quite sure if he had eyes on that earlier, but in the meantime, Shock Treatment has managed to grab himself a Tiberium Spike as well, so that's pretty significant. Definitely a nice pickup in Shock Treatment. He's opened himself up to some pretty early harass here, but he's got a very, very strong economy here in game number 1. And we'll have to see if he's able to hold on to that. He's going to be furthering that economy by dropping a portal here and going to be grabbing that Tiberium Spike uncontested as well. Oh, actually, the Raider Buggy going to be coming in, not able to get the snipe. So nice moves there from Shock Treatment to keep himself shielded in that situation. Double War Factory, Scorpion Tank push coming out from Maze in response. He definitely does not want to allow this to go uncontested. And meanwhile, Maze is actually going to be focusing down the portal here from Shock Treatment, wants to try to destroy any opportunity for these disintegrators to come out and wreak havoc on these Scorpion Tanks. And more than likely going to be seeing Maze kind of mixing in some anti-infantry here, probably in the form of Raider Buggies. Yeah, we can see more Raider Buggies streaming forward. Unfortunately, that means he's not going to have a huge amount of DPS here to continue to put out damage onto the Harvesters and the additional forces here from Shock Treatment. And now Shock Treatment has Devourer Tank, so Tier 2 is done for him. And actually that Devourer Tank extending a little bit too far forward, more than likely will be going down, taking a lot of damage. And finally that one will be going down. So Maze trading pretty cost effectively so far, considering that he's up against Devourer tanks, but we'll have to see if Shock Treatment can kite this well enough. That one will survive long enough, and actually the building block coming out here from Shock Treatment kind of unintentionally is going to be shielding his Devourer tanks, so very nice placement of his structures here to keep himself alive. Meanwhile, Maze has actually crept himself forward, going to be trying to go for a very, very aggressive push here onto Shock Treatment, but all of his Scorpion tanks have either been destroyed or forced to fall back to get repairs. And now it's Shock Treatment's game to lose. He's sitting on a much, much stronger economy as we take a look at the base of Maze. He's got that double war factory, only has 2 refineries and 5 harvesters. Meanwhile, Shock Treatment has double refinery here on his main field, as well as that tier 2, and then he has double refinery on his expansion. He does have 5 harvesters on this field as well, or maybe it's 4 harvesters. It is 4 harvesters. So he is sitting on 6 harvesters, but he has 4 refineries, so there's pretty much no downtime whatsoever for those harvesters. Once they grab the Tiberium, they're pretty much docking straight away. And now it's going to be Maze continuing to push forward here. He does have a number of mixed forces here. He's got the Scorpion tanks as well as Raider Buggies, but unfortunately he needs to put a lot of pressure on here in order to do the damage required to get these guys out of here. Meanwhile, it's going to be Maze actually focusing down the Devourer tanks while Shock Treatment was focusing down the MCV, but some unfortunate engagement mistakes here from Maze, not able to clean up enough of the Devourer tanks, and Shock Treatment is going to get some free damage on this construction yard in return. Actually may be able to kill this off with the charged up Devourer tanks. Huge DPS. That construction yard will be going down as we see it burn down in flames. Speaking of burning down, we do have a flame tank coming off to the right hand side, but we do have all of the supporting units of Maze actually falling back at this point in time. So this is very, very scary here for Maze. Shock Treatment, he's got a huge number of Devourer tanks, and unfortunately there's just no answer to them. infantry would be a nice counter, but unfortunately just not going to do well against the Buzzer Hives as well as the support powers coming out from shock treatment. So this is a very, very difficult game for Maze. He does have tier 3, but unfortunately only has a single war factory for production. In the meantime, shock treatment has managed to catch actually the flame tank out with a couple of seeker tanks. Is also going to drop down the lightning spike. We'll clean that up with ease, and that flame tank burns down. We do see that shock treatment did expand down to the right, so he has a massive economy advantage over the top of Maze, and this is looking like it could be final engagement here for Maze. Shock treatment going to be looking to go for the steamroll at this point in time. He realizes that he's destroyed the construction yard, likely knows that there's no second construction yard, seeing that there's no follow-up attack, and in the meantime, the avatars being caught out of position here, getting a huge concave of Devourer tanks. They are going to absolutely shred these avatars, and now the remaining forces of Maze are being thrown away, and Maze actually going to throw in the towel. Game number 1 going over to shock treatment. So very, very strong showing here from shock treatment. Game number 1 went very, very, I guess, with a risky build early on, especially against a Nod player, seeing that they could go for shadow teams and shut down both the expansion as well as the assimilator, but that was not the case for Maze. He did go refinery first, so maybe shock treatment reading that one blind, but all the same, he showed his stuff here in game number 1, and it's going to be up to Maze to bring himself back up in game number 2, and game number 2 is going to be coming right up. And with that said, we are brought to game number 2 on the map, Pipeline Problems, and spawning in the north as the Cyan Nod, we have Maze. And his opponent in the south, spawning as the Pink Nod, we have Shock Treatment. So Shock Treatment is up 1-0 here on Pipeline Problems, and Pipeline Problems is an interesting map. It's a map that we see very seldomly on Kane's Wrath due to the fact that the Tiberium on the left-hand side is fully grown, and by that I mean the blue Tiberium, and it's looking like it's going to be an early game Shadow Team rush here coming out from Shock Treatment. That is very interesting considering the early game eco that he went for on the last map, so maybe going to be looking to go for that early harass and maybe able to shut down a war factory or maybe even the crane that you would expect on this map. So that would actually be a really interesting move here coming out from Shock Treatment. We'll have to see if he's able to get in unscouted. It looks like they will be able to get in. Doesn't look like there's anything coming down here for Maze. He doesn't have any defenses queued at this point in time, so he may be able to get in and get a kill on the crane, and that would be devastating. It's looking like he is going to be going for it. Will he get the crane in time? That goes down. That drops the second refinery from actually going down, and that is very, very unfortunate here for Maze at this point in time. He is already down 1-0, and now he is being set further behind by Shock Treatment here, and now Shock Treatment, he's already had those shadow teams pay for themselves, and now we'll just see if he's able to do any additional damage with them. War Factory coming down for Shock Treatment as well. He already has 2 refineries on his blue field. No additional harvesters just yet due to the fact that he did go for the early game shadow teams. Immediately brings himself up into the area. Is going to skirt away a little bit longer, may if nothing else get himself some more map vision. Unfortunately, those will be going down to the combination of bike buggy here from Maze. And Maze, he's still ecoing no problem whatsoever here at this point in time. Shock Treatment, he does have another 2 of the shadow teams out on the left-hand side. It looks like he managed to drop himself a power plant or something to that effect. Not quite sure exactly what that was, but all the same, he is going to be escaping here from the bike buggy of Maze, and it's looking like he's trying to kite around and find himself a way to escape. And Maze, it's looking like he's trying to cut him off. He's split his bike buggy up into 2 different groups, realizing that there's only so many paths that Shock Treatment can take. But Shock Treatment has managed to juke the bike buggy, and he has managed to escape with those forces. Meanwhile, Shock Treatment, he's got some bike buggy of his own, and he's going to be answering this force here from Maze. And it's looking like he's going to go on the offensive. It has double War Factory, maybe triple War Factory, I'm not quite sure. No, as we do have another refinery coming down on that green field, but that's a lot of bike buggy here coming out from Shock Treatment, and this could be devastating here for Maze. Maze is definitely on the defensive, has triple War Factory. He's going to be pumping out Scorpion tanks, has an Operations Center on the front lines as well, so he's going to be creeping to that expansion very soon here, wants to get the economy advantage over the top of Shock Treatment, realizing that he went for that early aggression. Meanwhile, we do have triple War Factory in here for Shock Treatment. He is going for continuing to go for bike buggy. Unfortunately, taking a pretty costly engagement here into the forces of the Scorpion tanks of Maze, and is taking a lot of damage. Trading very, very ineffectively here. Does not take out very many Scorpion tanks, if any. I don't know that I've seen any go down just yet. More than likely has taken out a few, but one more Scorpion tank will be going down there. The Scorpion tanks, I believe, 2-shot the bikes, maybe 3-shot. I'm not quite sure. I'm pretty sure it's 2-shot, but all the same, the bike buggy having a difficult time here. Unfortunately, some infantry standing on Tiberium. They're going to be going down. It looks like maybe there is another shadow team that's made its way up into the north. It looks like it was just used as a scouting squad. That's going to be lost there for shock treatment, so that additional scouting, as well as potential harass coming out from shock treatment, is going to be staved off. But 2 refineries actually being sold off there by Maze, and in a quite quick fire sale. And now that harvester getting away with just what little Tiberium was left. And it's looking like shock treatment's not ready to give up on this attack just yet. That's a lot of bikes coming in. Only a single buggy there to tank the damage. So, I mean, if Maze commits to this, he's going to be able to take those bikes out pretty quickly. A lot of bikes coming in here into the original green field of Maze. Taking quite a bit of damage there. Silos being sold off for the militant squads. But meanwhile, we do have a counterattack from Maze coming out in the form of the Scorpion tanks. He's jumping into the main line of shock treatment. Huge concave, but Dozer Blades is done. The damage that he can tank is just extraordinary, and I think the numbers advantage is definitely in favor of Maze. Shock treatment has the defender's advantage, but he is managing to get some picks very, very nicely on the back lines. He's going to be able to clean himself up a number of these Scorpion tanks. He's trying to dwindle the numbers of Maze, of shock treatment as much as he can. In the meantime, it looks like the entire force of shock treatment has been cleaned up in the north, and Maze looks like he's going to be continuing to power through here with the superior numbers in the south, as he does continue to put pressure on the remaining Scorpion tanks of shock treatment. Triple War Factory still pumping out more Scorpion tanks out on the front lines, but they are immediately killed off, and shock treatment going to be throwing in the towel. So shock treatment not able to come out with a win in that game, as we did see it just all of a sudden abruptly end. I think that's the first time I've had that happen in an actual cast. I was not expecting that to happen. As you guys know, that I don't pre-screen my games, at least not beyond the first 4 seconds, to get the player names and stuff. So I was a little bit surprised by that, so I apologize if that came as a bit of a sudden shock. But I have to say, shock treatment getting taken down in pretty similar fashion to the way that he took down Maze in game number 1. And now Maze has evened up the score to 1-1. And it's anybody's game at this point in time. Best of 5 series, so these guys still need to pick up 2 more wins apiece in order to come out on top. So we'll have to see who ends up coming out victorious in game number 3. And game number 3 brings us to the map Tournament Tower. And spawning on the left-hand side as the pink nod, we have shock treatment. And picking himself up his first victory in the last game, down in the bottom right corner as the cyan nod, we have Maze. So Maze versus shock treatment here. This is game number 3. It is 1-1, so it's anybody's game at this point in time, or anybody's series. It is a best of 5 series. Obviously, we've been saying that throughout the course of the matches here, and we've been seeing very, very quick games. One player gets an early lead and does not let go. Maze and shock treatment, both very, very good players, and they're going to capitalize on any mistakes made. It looks like shock treatment is going to get himself the tower in the center. The namesake? I think it's namesake. We'll go with that. But Maze managed to escape with just one member of that militant squad. He's going to go back in trying to be a hero. Does go down. Rocket squad going to come forward and is going to jump into that tower as well. And that's just going to be a very annoying issue to deal with for Maze. He is going to be sending another militant squad here down around the south. Going to be actually cut off here by a squad by shock treatment. And we do actually have a couple of bikes coming out from shock treatment as well, realizing that he has the early game scouting advantage. But Maze is going to be going for a bike of his own, so maybe going to be looking to go for some harassment here. We do see a harvester come out as well, so that bike is actually going to head up to the north. I don't know that it has been spotted. It probably has, but all the same, shock treatment already has out some bikes of his own. Should be able to defend against that pretty easily. We'll have to see what these guys go for. It's looking like the base creep came out from shock treatment straight away. Going to be dropping 2 refineries on that expansion field as opposed to dropping them on his main. Obviously, you want to get the harvesting done on your expansion quicker, just due to the fact that it's a lot easier to defend your main field, and it will give you a lot more map control here to have some structures out on the front lines. Bikes going to be contesting here in the center of the map. Shock Treatment has a significant advantage in the form that he has the tower as well as a rocket squad in there. I don't know if he's got 2 rocket squads in there. No, it looks like it is just a single rocket squad. Militant squad was sent forward for some scouting. It looks like that was the one that was actually killed off by the shredder turret drop. 1 bike does go down here for Maze, so Shock Treatment trading pretty well so far early. And actually, Maze is going to be returning the favor, going to be dropping a bike of Shock Treatment as well in return. So good on him to make sure that he didn't take a complete loss in that trade. Meanwhile, we do just have more refineries coming out from Shock Treatment. He does have 4 refineries, has got up to a pretty decent number of harvesters as well. Drops his 2nd war factory at this point in time, and is going to be looking to pump out probably some additional Scorpion tanks. Scorpion tank battles have been pretty good on this map. There was a matchup that I saw actually between Maze and I believe it was Shock Trepid, I think it was, where it was absolutely back and forth all game long, and was just an absolute bloodbath. You can actually check that out on my channel. Be sure to check that out if you get a chance. It was definitely a good game. Maze has managed to clean himself up the tower here and is actually going to be forcing Shock Treatment to destroy it. Actually does decide to de-garrison with the Militant squad here. He's going to try to go forward and get some scouting information. That Black Hand squad going to remain in there just to prevent any additional capture from Shock Treatment. More than likely, Shock Treatment going to be sending out a Black Hand squad of his own. That looks like it's taking quite a long time to build. Yeah, that is going to be a Black Hand squad. He's going to try to come out and actually clear out that garrison. He does manage to force the de-garrison here from Maze, and now it's going to be Black Hand squad versus Black Hand squad. Scorpion tank v Scorpion tank battle here on the front lines, and nobody has the tower, so it's anybody's game. Rifle, or rather rocket squad's actually being cleaned up by the Black Hand squad that was left over from Maze. So Maze actually trading pretty well with those rocket squads. Looks like a vapor bomb, or no, I'm sorry, I thought it was a vapor bomb, but it is in fact a minefield coming out from Shock Treatment. Going to be doing quite a bit of damage and at least zoning Maze out of that portion of the Tiberium field. Needs to be careful here. Maze actually focus firing pretty well, but it's getting very, very messy here for both of these guys. It's Scorpion tanks in pretty equal numbers here. Honestly, Maze could actually force this engagement back towards his war factory and have the defender's advantage and really come out on top here. Unfortunately, he's choosing not to engage near his war factory, is taking pretty significant losses. We do have an obelisk down on the field, so maybe Maze trying to bait the Scorpion tanks a little bit farther forward. That obelisk taking out Scorpion tank after Scorpion tank, as they are pretty heavily damaged. Another one will be going down. I believe that obelisk claimed the life of 3 Scorpion tanks at least. Rocket squad's going to be firing from afar, going to be actually getting crushed by the Scorpion tanks here. 1 squad does survive, and now Scorpion tanks being sacrificed for the cause here from Maze. We did actually have okay, so we have Tib Catalyst missile coming out from Maze, going to be dropping down both of the refineries as well as a number of the harvesters of Shock Treatment. And we have avatars coming out on the field for both players. More avatars out on the field for Maze just now, as we do have the tier 3 out a little bit quicker from him, I believe. And man, that was an intense engagement. Maze probably could have came out a little bit better in that situation, but it looks like it's going to be return 1 clicks here coming out from Shock Treatment, as we did see that Tib Chem plant come down right away. So more than likely going to be sending in some type of a scout, get eyes on this field. Going to drop down a catalyst missile probably around here and then drop both of those refineries. So that will most likely be occurring in the very, very near future. Shock Treatment going to be cleaning up the Tiberium spike here down in the south. This was actually a major factor in the game that I watched between Maze and Shock Trepid, and the being allowed to keep the Tiberium spikes alive for the entire game. We'll have to see if Maze makes the same mistake into this game and leaves his opponent's Tiberium spike uncontested. Honestly, he should be going up there and returning fire on that Tiberium spike. It doesn't look like it has been actually touched so far. And we do have a stealth tank out from Maze. It's looking like a vapor bomb is going to be coming in from Maze to try to destroy this tier 3. Will that actually make it in? There is no anti-air defenses. Forces the sell-off from Shock Treatment. He sees it in time and is going to get the sell-off of that tier 3, but that's going to be setting a little bit further back. He's going to be more than likely be forced to produce Scorpion tanks in the meantime, and in the meantime we can see the avatars coming out from Maze. But we do actually have the Scorpion tanks that came from the south going to be counterattacking here down in the south in the main base of Maze, forcing the avatars to actually come down here and deal with them, and then they can just use their superior mobility to just kite these avatars. Honestly, that's way too many avatars sent down to deal with just this number of Scorpion tanks. I think Shock Treatment has forced Maze out of position for long enough, and he will likely be able to push here, or at least get himself established once again on the left-hand side. I believe we just heard something come out. Oh, was that Tib Catalyst? I thought for a second there that we heard a Tib Catalyst missile come out, but it doesn't appear as though that is the case. And it looks like the stealth tank has been cleaned up here in the north. Actually, no, another stealth tank here. I believe, no, that may be the same one. Taking a lot of damage from the Black Hand squads, or rather the remaining members of those Black Hand squads. And that one stealth tank will get away. Could actually focus down the Tiberium Spike if he sits far enough away. Actually, no, he's not going to be able to, as the 2 garrisons will be able to fire on him. Shock Treatment has a couple of shadow teams here up in the north. Not quite sure what his plan is with that. Maybe going to be going in and sniping down some power and just reduce the production here of Maze as much as he can. Tech Lab actually under fire here from a number of Scorpion tanks that have made their way around the edge of the map, and actually one Scorpion tank has gone elite. That could potentially go heroic. That would be very, very devastating. And what else do we have going on in the meantime? It looks like the battle is raging in the middle of the map. We'll actually swing the camera around a little bit here, as we do have rocket squads from Shock Treatment just doing absolute massive amounts of damage to these avatars, and militant squads being forced to be produced by Maze at this point in time. We'll actually redirect the camera. Let's take a look down in the south and see what's going on in the meantime. Oh, the Tech Lab has gone down to just those 3 Scorpion tanks, so Maze unfortunately not able to commit any forces to defending that, as he's being forced to defend his front lines here. The huge infantry transition here coming out from Shock Treatment was absolutely on point. He has the Tiberium field suits. I believe he's also got the Confessor, or I'm sorry, not Tiberium field suits, but Tiberium Infusion also has the Confessor upgrade, and he's going to be able to tank a lot of damage as well as deal out a lot on the front lines. Shredder turrets on the front lines, militant squads on the front lines, going to be trying to focus down this very, very scary infantry threat from Shock Treatment. And Maze, he's holding on, but I don't know for how much longer. We do still have those 2 shadow teams up in the north. I'm just trying to keep eyes on them because I got a feeling they're going to play a factor here in the near future. And it's looking like actually the construction are now being pressured by the 3 Scorpion tanks. Another Scorpion tank, actually both of those Scorpion tanks grabbing some veteran status. So they're actually getting quite a bit of kills on the back lines, doing that harassment from afar. And Maze just not able to stop this constant harassment here from Shock Treatment on his field here. Is luckily able to get completely free harvesting here due to the fact there isn't any stealth detection, but the tower finally does go down. It looks like these Scorpion tanks are all still alive. This is absolutely insane. They have been left alive for so long trying to focus down the Harvester. That Scorpion tank goes heroic. It's still alive. Will he be able to focus down the bike fast enough? He takes down the bike. Heroic Scorpion tanks on the back line could potentially be doing huge amounts of damage and a lot of harassment. Maze is going to have to commit some avatars to deal with that, as he does not want to allow those Scorpion tanks to do too much more harassment. But the majority of the Tiberium has been cleaned up at this point in time. The Tiberium Spike Force Shock Treatment still taken away here, so Maze may be falling victim to the same style of gameplay where it's just constant economy harassment coming out from his opponent, and there's just no answer to it. The Scorpion tanks here down in the field of Maze, but unfortunately have no stealth detection whatsoever, so they cannot deal with this. Going to be trying to take out a power plant. Should be able to actually take that out, as the heroic Scorpion tank has a huge amount of damage output, and the 2 veteran Scorpion tanks are not exactly slouches themselves. And the Avatar is going to be focusing down what Scorpion tanks they can clean up. The heroic one going to be trying to get away. Actually, Maze may have just building blocked himself in that situation. I think he did, but that Scorpion tank actually took 2 Avatar hits, and it's only down to about a fifth of its HP lost. And now the Avatar transition with rocket squads coming out from Shock Treatment. Going to be dealing with some Black Hand squads on the front lines, and actually Shadow Team's going to be trying to focus down the majority of that infantry. Not going to be able to clean up too much of it. Shredder turrets on the front lines, but they're going to be focused down straight away. Very nice move here from Shock Treatment to keep that alive. And we did have the Mine Drop in the meantime coming out from Maze. Going to be trying to kill off what he can here. Manages to clean up a couple of the rocket squads as they are falling back, but they are going to be able to survive pretty well. Heroic Scorpion tank still poking damage onto Maze, and this is just so annoying. Shock Treatment, that is just a very, very cost-effective Scorpion tank, and now that he should be able to crush all of those units, more than likely just microing elsewhere. And now we do have the avatars just continuing to mass up here for Shock Treatment. In the meantime, Maze, what has he got to respond to this? It doesn't appear as though there's too much at this point in time. He does have a number of avatars out. They are pretty heavily damaged. Tier 2 does come back down for Maze, so more than likely going to be seeing Tier 3 coming back out for him. And it's looking like the Scorpion tank is still being allowed to get free damage on these structures here, and it could be another power plant going down for Maze. Yes, that's going to be going down, and now that Scorpion tank will get away. That heroic Scorpion tank absolutely coming out with a big victory in this game. It's just been forcing Maze out of position and forcing him to pay attention to his back lines this whole game, whereas I think Maze was really hoping to do that with the stealth tanks that we saw earlier, but Shock Treatment shut it down pretty quickly. These two, actually the 2 shadow teams very lightly damaged. going to be escaping, may actually be able to take out a number of these rocket squads while they're pushing forward. Looks like he is going to go for the snipes on the engineer. Very nice pickup there. Going to be denying any capture of the avatars as they go down. And they are sitting on the back line. Do get crushed by the avatar. That is unfortunate, but they're taking out a lot of infantry in the meantime. And there's just no answer to them. They're just running forward in the mix of the infantry, trying to find what they can. But an avatar went down as well. And now, I mean, Maze, he's got a decent-sized army here, but I think the avatars of Shock Treatment are just in good enough numbers that they should be able to hold it. And Shock Treatment playing this very well. He's going to be setting up a line of defense around his war factory. Going to be able to use that for some repairs and just make those avatars just a bit more tanky. And then also allowing himself the opportunity to drop shredder turrets on the front lines to defend against his infantry. And we do have a Black Hand Squad rushing forward here from Shock Treatment. Going to be trying to kill off as much infantry as he possibly can. Shredder turrets doing huge amounts of damage. And now Maze has been forced back once again, and he's going to be sitting back in his base. So Shock Treatment, he's just going for that slow creep forward. Would not be shocked to actually see him push forward with his MCV and drop shredder turrets on the front lines. I think he could actually force Maze off of this platform entirely, or at least force the game-ending engagement. Maybe he's not prepared to do that just yet, not quite sure, but we do actually have a carry-all coming out from Maze with an engineer inside, so it's looking like he may try to go for a capture on that Tiberium spike. That would be pretty impressive if he's able to pull that off. I don't think he's going to be able to, as it's going to be spotted here by these garrisons. I don't know if he's going to try to send that down and around to the backside of Shock Treatment's base and maybe get a capture on one of his structures. He is sending that all the way around the top, so it looks like he's maybe going to try to use that to go for some structures up north, or rather on the left-hand side. He does send it all the way around. I don't know that Shock Treatment's actually seen this yet. I don't think he has, as he's not sending anything back to deal with it. Meanwhile, Shock Treatment has been pushing forward. He's managed to kill off the majority of this base here of Maze, but in the meantime, we do have a carry-all on the back lines. Gonna be going in for the Tier 3 capture. Will he actually get it? And the Tier 3 is captured by Maze. Very nice pickup there. I was not expecting him to be able to pick that up, and that may have just given him the eco boost to get himself back into this game. And Maze, he's got the crazy tricks working out in his favor once again. And now is he going to be able to continue to push forward here and put the pressure really onto Shock Treatment with that $2,000 back in his pocket from the sold-off tech assembler. And it's looking like militant squads on the front lines trying to tank the damage as well as kill off some of the rocket squads. But unfortunately, an avatar taking the return damage here for Maze. It's looking like some rocket squads of Maze are also going to be taking some damage while they are retreating. The avatars are mostly bunched up here, not able to really get too much damage on the front lines here for Maze. Does manage to focus down one avatar, going to be trying to poke down another one, not able to do so. The avatar is now tanking the damage for these rocket squads, and it's mostly militant squads here on the front lines for Maze, as well as the avatars. Avatars going down one by one for Maze. Shock Treatment looking very strong right now. He's going to continue to push forward. Honestly, would love to see the MCV coming forward for him at this point in the game. I think he could end this game very quickly if he does that. But it doesn't look like he's ready to commit that much to this push just yet. And Shock Treatment, he's going to continue to push forward, taking a lot of damage from these militant squads on the flanks. And they are taking out a decent number of those rocket squads, actually getting the hallucinogenic grenades off on some of the rocket squads, forcing them to fire on their own avatars. Now the avatars are focusing down their own rocket squads. That's a little bit unfortunate, but all the same, Maze has been completely pushed off of the platform, and this gives an eco advantage in the form of this Tiberium field to Shock Treatment if he chooses to capitalize on that. Another refinery, surprisingly enough, coming down on his expansion field. I don't know about that decision from Shock Treatment. I don't know that he necessarily needed 2 refineries there. He does pack up the MCV, more than likely going to be looking to push forward now. I don't know if he's dropped a crane anywhere. He does still have his refinery on the back lines. Could get a harvester back there to grab that Tiberium, as Shock Treatment is definitely starved for cash at this point in time. Maze, though, he does not want to allow this Tiberium to go into the hands of Shock Treatment uncontested. It looks like Maze is actually going to try to send some avatars up to the north, maybe looking to snipe that Tiberium spike and just eliminate that additional economy advantage that Shock Treatment has had for the majority of the game. Honestly, at this point, I think that's a pretty heavy expenditure of forces, particularly because Maze has a reduced number of avatars in comparison to Shock Treatment, and that Tiberium spike has just earned its weight in gold over the course of this game. And actually, he's sent his entire avatar army up to the north. The MCV actually pretty heavily damaged here by more than likely by the heroic Scorpion tank. Not quite sure what happened to that. It probably went down. More than likely a couple of avatars being sent down there to deal with it. Another avatar here from Maze actually going to be cleaned up. couple of avatars from Maze in the north going to be trying to stay out of the line of sight here from shock treatment. I thought for a second there that he was going to commit into that force, but he's actually managed to force 3 of the avatars of shock treatment to come off of the front lines. But now shock treatment is just getting further ahead in the form of economy here with a refinery on the front lines, has his MCV pushing forward as well to deal with this infantry force and get himself some build radius in this area. And the Shredder turret should be able to hold the line pretty easily against this force. Avatar is tanking the majority of the damage, but the Shredder turret's dealing the majority of the damage in return. And the Militant squad's being expended for no gain so far. The Avatars here from Maze in the north still running back to their main base. And actually the MCV here from Maze trying to do something here on in the bottom of the map. Not quite sure what his plan is, as that's been spotted out by the Shredder turrets from shock treatment. Not quite sure what Maze is up to with this MCV. Looks like he's maybe trying to drop something on the back lines to be able to do something to shock treatment, but I don't know that he's really going to be able to. I mean, shock treatment, he's just got such a significant economy advantage, has dropped 2 refineries on this expansion, and it looks like Maze has actually deployed his construction yard. He's building something straight away. Not quite sure what it's going to be. Probably going to be a Hand of Nod, and yeah, it is going to be a Hand of Nod. Probably going to try to go for some type of a base trade situation here. But honestly, it's not going to work. Maze just trying to find some way to claw himself back into this game. Not sure whatsoever about what his plan is here down in the south. He's dropped a secret shrine. I don't know what he's planning. Maybe going to be going for shadow teams. Do we see shadow teams called in? He sells off the Hand of Nod. Not really sure what shock treatment, or rather what Maze is up to. Shock treatment in the meantime is going to push forward and force the sell off of this entire original main base. And it's looking like Maze is maybe just trying to buy time, or maybe just going for a little bit of a troll move here on shock treatment. As I don't know what he was using this for. Okay, so it looks like there's a disruption tower here somewhere for Maze, as I'm pretty sure that's a cloaked construction yard. Yeah, there is a disruption tower here somewhere. I'm having a very hard time locating where it is, though. It may be mixed here in these structures somewhere. Oh man, he's hid that really well. I have no idea where it is. It may actually be inside of one of these structures. I think there's some type of a glitch where you can get that inside of one of the structures, but all the same, not quite sure what's going on there. Maze is counterattacking on the left-hand side of the map. He should be able to clean himself up a refinery. He does have shadow teams out as well. Not quite sure what his plan is, though, as he does not have the forces to really push through this army. He's going to commit into it. He's going to drop an avatar for free here, as he doesn't take any return damage. Shock treatment now going to be stopping and focus firing. He's going to take out another avatar as well, but a second avatar going to be going down for shock treatment, and now it is just not looking good for Maze. The majority of his avatars have gone down, and these will be the final forces of Maze as he throws in the towel in game number 3, going to shock treatment. So very, very good game from both of these players. Unfortunately, Maze getting himself behind an economy by shock treatment, taking out that Tiberium spike so early in the game, and I bet that is reiterated here by the resources graph. As we can see, they were sitting on pretty equal resources, aside from the fact that the Tiberium spike was giving shock treatment that additional 25 credits a second. So that's a pretty significant advantage to have, especially in a situation where there's very low amounts of TIB left on the map. So letting that stay alive for too long is definitely not a good thing, especially here in Tiberium Wars, where you get that additional 15 credits on top of the 10 that you would get in Kane's Wrath. So very, very nice moves here from shock treatment. He managed to capitalize on the advantages that he had, and Maze, despite his crazy antics with some of his special moves like capturing the tier 3 and moving his MCV down to the south, he was not able to pull that off. So shock treatment going to be putting himself up 2-1 in this series, and that means it's going to be do or die for Maze in game number 4. And with that said, we are brought to game number 4 on the map Tournament Rift. And spawning on the left side as the pink GDI, we have shock treatment. And sliding over the right-hand side, the man that has to pick up a win here in this game to stay alive as the cyan nod, we have Maze. So like I said before several times, it is do or die here for Maze. Losing last game, he does get map choice, so bringing it to Classic Tournament Rift here should be interesting. Shock treatment opting to go GDI this time around. It doesn't necessarily want to go Scrin or Nod. We've seen both factions coming out from him. So interesting to see a full showing here from shock treatment. Going to be bringing out all 3 factions here in this semifinals. Realizing that maybe he has a little bit of an advantage here, or maybe he's got something specific in mind to deal with Maze in this game. And with that, we've got some rifleman squads as well as militant squads running around the map just trying to get some scouting information. It's looking like Maze is going to manage to take out one of the rifleman squads, no problem whatsoever, but there is a foxhole there for shock treatment, so he should be able to deny any additional scouts coming out from Maze up through the center of the map. We do have 3 APC engineers coming out from shock treatment, so this is a very, very heavy investment here for shock treatment. If they get sniped, that could be lights out for them. We'll have to see how it ends up working out. Wait a second, did I see... Okay, so we do have the MCV pack up here from shock treatment. I thought for a second there that he packed up with only 1 refinery, and I thought he was going some kind of crazy base push, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Shock treatment going to be packing up and going for the expand pretty quickly here. Doesn't have a whole lot of harvesters out on the field just yet. Maze, I don't think he's actually going to get eyes on the fact that there is an APC engineer here coming out through the middle of the map. He does have a rifleman squad in his base at the moment, so shock treatment's got some early warning as to where the bikes are. Bikes are going to manage to catch out the APC, and the APC engineer will deploy, but unfortunately the engineer will not be able to grab that MCV. Maze packing that up too quickly to be captured. That will be killed off by the forces here of Maze, and just going to be denying that that very early cheese coming out from shock treatment. But in the meantime, shock treatment's managed to grab himself 2 Tiberium spikes in the south. Both of the APCs are going to be escaping with their lives. May actually be cut off here by the bike buggy that's coming out from Maze. I don't think Maze has actually seen this. He more than likely has seen that the Tiberium spikes have been captured, and now he's going to try to clean up the APCs here from shock treatment. That's essentially the consolation prize at this point. Realizing that he's lost both of those Tiberium spikes, he needs to take away something from shock treatment if he can. And now the early harassment coming out from Maze. We'll have to see if he's able to get in here and do some damage. He's got a little bit of time here to potentially come in and poke some damage onto some harvesters. It looks like he's actually going to send... Okay, he's going to send his forces back. Not quite sure what his plan is. He's going to try to de-garrison this squad here from shock treatment. Honestly, those... I would have liked to see those bikes come in and actually poke some damage onto some harvesters, maybe even just force them off the lines, but maybe he's just respecting the forces of shock treatment, realizing that he's likely massing up some units to counter those bike buggy, and he would be right. We did see a number of pit bulls out on the map. It looks like it is double war factory production here for shock treatment. We do see the war factory here in the north, as well as the war factory in the south. Predator tanks coming out on the front lines. We do have a crane as well as a second refinery coming down on its expansion. And shock treatment, it looks like he's going to expand up to the north. And we'll have to see if he can get himself a foothold up there, as it looked like Maze was actually trying to de-garrison those squads so that he can actually secure himself a foothold up here in the north. Meanwhile, Maze doesn't have any economy on this expansion field whatsoever. He's only just now expanding for the first time. Is now going to deploy his MCV. And what has he done in the meantime? He's dropped a 3rd refinery on his main field. I don't know about that decision. And he's got pit bulls coming in from the north. This could be devastating. There's absolutely nothing here at home to defend against. There's just a single Scorpion tank, which is way out of position. And Maze is going to be caught with his pants down. 3 refineries on this main field going to be absolutely useless when all of these harvesters go down, as we're going to be seeing them going down very quickly. Actually, they are quite tanky. Maze going to be trying to mount a defense here, sells off some structures, trying to get some additional DPS out on the front lines. More than likely going to be taking out a 3rd harvester. Will that go down? Wow, actually, these harvesters are just so tanky here in Tiberium Wars. At least I believe they're a little bit more tanky than in Kane's Wrath. I would have expected that number of pit bulls to actually steamroll through those forces, but it looks like the Scorpion tanks here from shock treatment on the left-hand side are going to be forced back by the double Hand of Nod drop from Maze. And probably a wise decision. Doesn't necessarily want to overcommit and take some losing engagements. Actually, double laser turret defense here from Maze. Not a drop that you see very often. Those laser turrets, very low DPS in comparison to what they probably should be, as we saw all of those turrets focusing down that one Predator tank, and didn't even take away half of its HP. So not necessarily the best thing in the world, but probably held shock treatment back far enough, just saying, oh, okay, now I see that you've got double MCV, which the second MCV is here down in the south, and Maze has managed to grab himself both of the Tiberium spikes down in the south, as well as a refinery on this blue field. So actually Maze could potentially get himself very far ahead here if he's able to harvest uncontested. Sonic emitters coming out from shock treatment. That's actually a lot of defensive capability coming out from shock treatment. Those sonic emitters just so good against this composition here from Maze. And now an Obelisk on the front lines is going to be trading with the sonic emitter. I honestly think that the Obelisk has more DPS per shot and will likely end up winning out in that fight. They both go down in rapid succession, and we do have the Predator Tank army here from Shock Treatment continuing to push forward, going to try to kill off some Harvesters. Does not actually kill off that Harvester, and now they are going to be forced to fall back here. An Obelisk being dropped down as well, going to be probably claiming the life of one more Predator Tank. Yes, that will be going down, and actually Maze getting a pretty favorable engagement in that situation, though the artillery on the backlines for Shock Treatment is raining down from afar. An Obelisk creep here coming out from Maze, going to be dropped down very close to these Juggernauts, going to be forcing them to fire on them. But Railgun's done for Shock Treatment, and that's a huge power spike for him. He can now push forward and do a lot of damage. Sonic Emitter getting absolute massive amounts of damage. Oh my god! That Sonic Emitter placement, absolutely insane amounts of damage. I think he took out about 15 Scorpion tanks there, and if that had not done it, it more than likely would have been the Railgun Predator tanks as well as Rocket Squads and Juggernauts on the back lines here for Shock Treatment that would clean it up. And this is looking very good for Shock Treatment. He's got the artillery advantage. He's focusing down these forces on the front lines, and he's not taking a huge amount of damage in return. The Rocket Squad's tanking the majority of the Obelisk shots as they're not being microed properly in this game. What else do we have going on here? We don't have any economy harassment coming out from Maze. Would have liked to see that maybe in the form of stealth tanks down in the south, maybe forcing a Sonic Emitter drop down there to defend against that, just give himself a little bit of breathing room here up in the north, but he has none to speak of, more than likely trying to catch his breath from that last fight, as he did lose all of those Scorpion tanks, and now his entire base here is potentially going to be going down. Tier 3 could be going down. It more than likely will be. That has pretty paper-thin armor in relation to railgun damage, and Maze actually being forced to sell off that entire base. Luckily, he gets the sell-off as opposed to losing it straight up. He gets at least a little bit of that economy back that he expended on building it. But in the meantime, where is that second MCV? Second MCV has expanded off to the right-hand side. He does have a full green Tiberium field here that he can harvest off of, so that's a pretty significant amount of economy that he can be gathering pretty much for free. There's really not a whole lot of harassment opportunities from Shock Treatment. I mean, he could drop some airfields, but he has 4 refineries here just kind of mixed around all over the place for Shock Treatment. He's more than likely kind of mixed up their placements just due to the fact that he's probably anticipating that there will be a Tib Catalyst missile coming out from Maze in the near future, but honestly, we don't see that coming out just yet, as he did lose that Tier 3. That set him pretty far behind. He does have Tier 2 backup online. More than likely going to be seeing Tier 3 coming down in the near future. Pitbull's coming out, going to be getting some harassment off on the outlying power plants of Maze, but the infantry as well as avatars are going to be responding to this. A silo drop coming out from Maze actually sells that off straight away. He may have been able to use that as a building block for long enough to keep himself alive there, but we do have the Railgun Predator tanks. Actually, it looks like one may go down to this squad that's garrisoned inside of this little structure here, so one Predator tank does go down, but trading that for a Tiberium spike, that's pretty significant. Doesn't look like Shock Treatment necessarily wants to capture that away from Maze. He's just going to force them down, realizing that he probably has an economy advantage here into this game. He has 3 fields to Maze's 2. I mean, he does have a refinery on this blue field and has been able to pretty much harvest that uncontested, but honestly, there's no blue tib minus that one crystal that we saw there just a moment ago left on the map. It looks like Maze is going to try to defend his Tiberium spikes at this point in time, or rather his only remaining Tiberium spike. And we do actually have 2 flame tanks that are out in the north. They are stealthed as well, so they could do absolutely horrific amounts of damage to Shock Treatment if they're able to get in uncontested. Shock Treatment will more than likely be able to drop a Sonic Emitter to clean those up, but we'll have to see. We do actually have some laser Venoms coming out from Maze, going to be trying to deal with the infantry. Not very tanky units, but they're cleaning these guys up very, very quickly, and I don't think we have any infantry upgrades. No, we do. Composite armor is, in fact, upgraded for Shock Treatment, so these guys are particularly tanky. Railgun Mammoth tanks coming out on the front lines. That's when you know that Shock Treatment is pretty far ahead. Juggernauts galore coming out from him as well, and in the meantime, we do have the 2 flame tanks. Actually, they forced the pack up to the construction yard, but Shock Treatment's just being very annoying, and I think Maze has realized this, and he's just going to try to force down some other structures, realizing that the construction yard is going to be particularly hard to kill off. He hasn't actually killed anything here. He's more than likely dealing with some other issues. 1 flame tank does go down straight away. He's actually got mammoth tanks here to deal with, and a Sonic Emitter drop as well. He's still microing that, but he's taking a lot of damage, and I don't think that those flame tanks are necessarily going to pay off the way that he was hoping for it. and I think there's a couple of heroic rocket squads from what I can tell. Yeah, there are a couple of heroic rocket squads which have managed to clean up a lot of Venoms, and this is looking like it could be lights out here for Maze. He doesn't have anything to defend against this. Holy crap, where did all of those Venoms come from? That's a huge amount of Venoms, but the Venoms, as good as they may be against infantry, they absolutely do nothing against these Mammoth tanks. And the Mammoth tanks in return can be focusing them down pretty quickly. Looks like he is going to choose to fire on them. Actually, that number of Venoms doing a surprising amount of damage to the Mammoth tanks, and we'll have to see what the response is here from shock treatment. Does he have any anti-air to speak of? It looks like he's producing pit bulls here. Doesn't necessarily want to go for the oh geez, I can't remember the name of them now. Slingshots, that's the word I was looking for. I'm pretty sure slingshots are a thing in Tiberium Wars. Not quite sure. Obviously, you guys know that I don't play Tiberium Wars all that often, so actually, if at all, ever. I think I've played maybe 2 or 3 games on Tiberium Wars in total. So don't necessarily count my commentary as expert commentary. We're just here to bring you the games. But anyways, I don't know how we ended up on that tangent. Venom's still flying around here from Maze. He's managing to take out the rocket squads before they get massed up to a decent size army here as well. But the pit bulls are going to come in. They're going to get a complete cleanup of those Venoms. So very, very nice job there. But Maze going to be throwing in the towel, and shock treatment going to be taking the game and the series here on Tournament Rift. So very, very good game coming out from shock treatment, just capitalizing on the small mistakes made by Maze. And Maze going for those cheeky moves there with like the shield, I'm sorry, not the shielded, but the stealth flame tanks up in the north. Did not manage to actually take out the MCV. Shock treatment was paying too close attention. Didn't get the radar jamming missile off quickly enough, or maybe he did, and shock treatment just realized it and said, hey, I better take a look at my MCV, and realized that they were there. Packs that up, unpacks it, packs it up, forces those flame tanks to be remicroed over and over again, not getting a huge amount of damage off on units, and allows shock treatment to get some time to respond to that force. Nice move there from shock treatment to keep himself alive, but he was so far ahead, it really would have been a pretty big throw if he lost that game. So shock treatment coming through with a pretty dominating victory here in this series, and we'll be seeing him moving on into the finals of this tournament, and that will be coming up here on my channel in the near future. But semifinal B going to be coming up very, very soon, so be sure to keep an eye out. And that's it for me, everybody, today. I hope you guys have all enjoyed the action so far. This is looking like it's going to be a pretty great tournament as we move through these later stages. And with that said, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.